Hey everyone, Leo with Dreaming Tree, and welcome to the assembly video for our pumpkin pie or cookie box. I've got all of my pieces cut out in front of me here, as should you. And of course, most of us, if not all of us, especially in the States, we will be attending some sort of fall festivity. More than likely, it'll be a Thanksgiving gathering, and what better way to give your host or hostess a pumpkin pie or apple pie, whatever it is you're into, than to create a custom little box for it. This would be great for a teacher as well. So we're going to start off by putting the base of our box together, which is made up of these four pieces, and they look a little bit different than usual, but the only reason is we've got this extra flap to kind of thicken things up a little bit. So you'll notice that there are four of these pieces. All of these have a letter B kind of etched or well, scored into the tabs. And what we're going to do is we're going to start by applying glue to these large tabs here, and try to make sure that you cover the entire tab and get a little bit of glue out to the very edge. I'm going to take my finger and spread that glue out to the very, very edge of the tab. Okay, and then we can actually just put this down flat on our surface, grab the next piece, line it up, and press that down. I feel like it's been a long time since we've made a simple box. Okay, so we'll put that together, and then as it's drying, I like to kind of flip it onto itself, and you can see how these tabs here, especially at this angle, they meet up perfectly, sit right on top of each other, and that's a good indicator that you have it assembled correctly and accurately. Okay, so we've got half of it put together. Make sure that it's nice and dry before you start flailing it around, which I'm kind of not doing here. Okay, moving on to the next tab, we'll repeat this process a couple more times until all four sides are together. And I might have gone a little bit too heavy on the glue on that last one, which is why it didn't completely set as quickly as most of my pieces do. Okay, so we'll just grab the next piece, line it up again. You can see what I'm doing here. I'm putting it up to the score mark, and these lines here, these horizontal lines, should match up perfectly. We'll press that down and take this and again fold it over onto itself. Check that angle. I can see that it's a tiny bit off here, so I'll just give it a little nudge and then press down on the tab, and that should kind of hold it in place. And this one's going to dry a lot quicker because I used less glue. Okay, so we've got three sections put together. Move on to the last tab here. We'll do one more tab after this because we need to join this all together and make it one. Okay, we'll spread that glue out to the very edge of the tab, just like that. And we'll grab this guy here and line this one up, just like that. Press that down and hold it for just a moment. And then you can take this whole thing, flip it over, and then this is the side I just glued down. I'm going to put it down flat, make sure that the angles are right. Looks good. Perfect. Okay, so now all we need to do is apply glue to this last tab here, and we're going to connect it to the other end. Boxes are very easy. Definitely one of those pieces that if you're new to 3D paper making or paper crafting, this would be a good one to start with for sure. Okay, all right, so we've got that. I'm going to flip it like this. Technically, you should be able to put this down flat, grab the other half, and just drop it right into place. It should fall right into place, exactly where it needs to be. There we go. Press that down. I'm going to take it and lift it up and fold it over onto that seam. And press that down. Everything's matching up nicely. And that's perfect. Okay, so now you can take this, pop it onto your surface like this. I'm going to take these tabs and fold them in. Now we have two of these large pieces. Okay, one of them you'll notice has one of the corners here, you'll see a BL. That's bottom liner. We're going to hold on to this for later. And we're going to glue this onto one of the tabs right now just to get it anchored. And that's going to make putting it on the remaining four tabs a lot easier. So let's do that. And we'll throw a little extra glue along the edge, paint that glue out. You can use your finger, you can use a little brush, a scrap piece of paper. I personally like to use my finger. It's quick, it's always there, it's accessible, and you have better control with it. Okay, so we're gonna pop that right onto that tab, right out to the very edge. Make sure it's nice and centered. Press that down into place, just like so. That's perfect. Now what you can do is you can take it and just let it drop, and then press down on the tab from the inside. There we go. Give that a few seconds to set. Again, less glue is better. We'll go a lot quicker. You won't have to sit there and wait for it to dry. All right, let's fold this over like so. And now we're going to take our glue and apply it to the remaining 3 tabs. We've got a lot of surface area to cover here. It's okay if you go a little bit heavier with the glue here. You can tell it's a little bit thicker. And then I'm going to take and I'm going to spread this glue out to the very edge, just like I've been doing. We got more surface area here. It's going to help keep this thing nice and sturdy. But definitely spread that glue out to the edge. It's the most important thing to do to get a good end result. All the way out to the corners. There we go. And then what you can do is take this lid and focus on getting it aligned on this end here. Because by doing that, the 2 other sides just kind of naturally fall into place. Just press that down like so, and then just run your finger along the edge on the remaining sides if you want. You kind of turn it closer to you so you can see it better. And then I'll pop that down on my surface and press down on the tabs from the inside. Just give it a quick little spin. Okay. And let's take a look at our edges here. You can see that you can kind of fold these in just to make this a little bit easier to work with. I've got these little edges here that are not sitting completely flat, and that's very typical of a large piece like this. And that's okay, because what we can do is take a little scrap piece of paper, throw a tiny little bit of glue right on the very corner of it, and just tuck it into those little areas that are maybe not sitting completely flat. And then just press and hold those little areas down. Just work your way around. It should take just a few seconds. Most of it should be making really nice and crisp, clean contact. And if it's not, no harm, no foul. You can always go in and clean it up. Just apply a very thin amount of glue right on the very corner. Tuck it in between those 2 layers. A little bit of glue will do that job wonderfully. And just hold that down. Just kind of rub your finger along that edge, and that will kind of get rid of any excess glue. And then if you have any little gaps that are super thin, you can always take a little bit of glue and put it right on the very edge of this scrap piece of paper and literally just pop it right in there, right in between those 2 layers, like that. Wipe off the excess and then press it down, and before you know it, you've got yourself a beautifully clean looking seam. So I would just go around and make sure that everything looks good. I think I've got one more side here that could use a little extra TLC, so I'm going to do it. Because why not? This box is going to go together really quick as it is, so you may as well make it as perfect as possible. And this is great practice for other projects from our site that maybe are a little bit larger too. Okay, I'm holding that down while I throw a little extra glue on the edge of this. And I've got one more little area here. I just want to throw a little extra glue on. And I'll press and hold that down. And there we go. And now it's pretty much as perfect as it's going to get. Okay, so now these little tabs here, these are kind of little reinforcements. What we're going to do with this is we can just kind of put this, hold it like this, and I'm just going to go very light on the glue here. Just kind of do some little swirlies like that, and you're going to press that in and glue that down against itself on the inside. I'm turning it so that that surface, this part where I'm actually gluing this in, is against my table, so I can press down. That will avoid warping the project as well. Very nice and thin. pop that in. Fold it over onto your surface, press down on all the sides here. Okay. Very simple. There we go. Press that down, get it into place. Wonderful. And the last one. And press that down. There we go. Nice and sturdy, perfect for some cookies, a pie, whatever it may be. This thing measures in at 9 inches, which is pretty standard size pie, especially a pumpkin pie. All right, so we've got that done. Now we have this piece here. This is the liner that goes inside. It's going to hide the tabs for us and also just kind of make things a little bit more sturdy on the bottom. Don't need a lot of glue for that. And just pop that right in. Let that fall in there. Center it and press down all the way around so that it gets a good hold. Perfect, nice and sturdy. Okay, looks great. Yep. All right, so the process for the lid is pretty much the same. It's just a little bit different. Obviously, we have some decorative elements that go along with it. So these are the 4 sides. And now before we actually put the sides on, we do have these little panels. And you can see here I've inked these and I've also embossed them. When I embossed them, I ran them through my machine twice. And let me see if I have an embossing folder handy here. I might have the exact one. Actually, yes I do. And it's not perfect, but unless you're putting it under a microscope, I don't think your recipient's going to really notice. So what I did was I found the center of these, especially this one here. The center is obvious here because you've got this little half circle. That's the center part. So what I did was I put this into my embossing folder at about the halfway point. Okay, and I ran it through my embossing machine this way. And then I took it and I flipped it and I put it in the other half. And then I ran it through again to get both sides because this obviously won't fit in one fell swoop. So you have to do it twice. And luckily it's, you know, it's not wide. That's not too wide to where it won't fit. But I do want to put these panels on before we assemble this. It's a lot easier to work with this while it's flat. And these are going to have an even border all the way around. So let's get our glue going. Now we've got, this is obviously embossed, so your glue is, if it gets into the debossed sections, it's pretty much worthless. So just make sure you get good coverage on there. And again, nice even border all the way around on all sides. And I was off a little bit there. There we go, perfect. Press that down. Now with embossed elements like this, you don't want to push too hard because you might actually flatten that embossing. And we like that embossing because it really gives it a nice texture. So try to maintain that if you can. Okay, let's do all 4 of these. Get our glue going on this one. Okay, this one's easy to center because you can just look at the little half circle there and use that as your focal point. Take a look on the sides, make sure everything's nice and straight, and press that down. I love this this contrast of the AC vanilla on this orange. This orange is apricot, American Crafts apricot. What a beautiful combination of colors. Okay, so that just leaves 2 more. Now this one here, obviously there's no little half circle there for your fingers, so just want to make sure that you get that as centered as possible. Just look at the edges and the corners, and you should be able to figure that out no problem. There we go. And pop that into place. I'm kind of scanning this piece from top to bottom, left to right, looking at that border just to make sure that it's nice and even. Yeah, looks pretty good. Okay, and that just leaves one more to go here. But it really just, embossing really just takes things to another level. So if you've not done any embossing, I highly recommend it. It really sets things apart from all the, you know, paper's relatively flat. I mean, we shape it and we make it dimensional by curving it and doing all those things, but adding ink and embossing really just takes this to, not to sound cliche, but it does take it to another level. There we go. Okay. All right, so we've got all four sides here. All right, and just like we did with the base, we're gonna just connect these. Now, one thing you need to keep in mind is we need to alternate these as we assemble them. You don't want both of these with the little finger holes next to each other. So we'll go solid, half circle, solid, and then half circle. Okay, so I'm gonna start with this one here. And just like we did with the base, I'm gonna put my glue on the tab, spread that glue out to the very edge, just like so. This one's solid without the half circle, so we're gonna grab a piece with the half circle and lay that right next to it and press that down into place. And just like we did with the base, I'm gonna take this and fold it over onto itself. And again, you can see this little angle here, and you wanna make sure this is nice and straight. Push down on that seam if it is. If it isn't, give it a little nudge until it is, and then press down. And we've got two sections connected. So we'll move this down just a bit. Don't forget, we've got a half circle here, which means we need a solid piece next. And we'll repeat the same process. Apply your glue to this tab. Spread that glue out. And we'll grab the next solid piece. Line that up, right up to the tab, or right up to the score marks, I should say. Give that a quick press. And then we'll take it, and fold it over onto itself. Check your angle here, make sure that's nice and straight. If it is, press it down. If it isn't, give it a little nudge in whatever direction it needs to go. And now we have three. Okay, and that just leaves one more here. That's the one with, and you know what, actually these are numbered. You could do them in the order if you want, but like I said, as long as you just alternate them, you'll be fine. Okay, so there's that, last one. We'll pop that in place, like so. Press down, and then we'll fold it over onto itself. Check your angle. You can see this side is kind of overlapping the one behind it a little bit, so we'll give it a nudge over to the right, and then press that down. There we go. Okay, now finally, we're going to take and glue the two ends together. Let's go ahead and apply our glue to this tab. Give it a good amount, but nothing too crazy. Once you spread it out, it should be pretty thin. Okay, we can actually just put this down flat, grab the other end, and pop it right on top there, and press down. I'm going to take it and fold it over onto that seam. Check the alignment, looks pretty good. If it's off a tad, don't worry about it, it'll still work nicely. And press that down. Okay, now, just like we did with the base, we've got the box assembled. Okay, so we have two pieces that look similar. The one that has a skinnier stem, put that off to the side. We're not going to need that right now. We will need it in a bit. And one thing to keep in mind here is this design, you want the little finger holes on the left and right hand side of the design. Okay, so we need to put this on like this. You do not want to put this on like this. I mean, I guess it's not the end of the world if it happens. You can see the little finger hole there at the bottom. You want the design to be here with the finger holes on the side. Okay, so with that said, let's get our glue going. We're going to anchor this down onto one tab for now, just to make putting it on the other three tabs easier. And we'll spread that glue out to the edge, just like we've been doing. Okay, again, make sure your finger holes are on the side. And let's get that onto the tab, right out to the very edge of that side. Don't worry too much about the rest of it moving around. Just Pop that into place, make sure it's right along that edge. You can take it and flip it down, press down on the tab here. Don't worry about the rest of it. You can actually just leave that flat. It looks kind of weird, but just go with it. Okay. And looks like we've got a nice solid edge there. And we can take this and fold it out of the way. Bring these 3 tabs down, and we'll apply our glue to the remaining 3 tabs to close this up. Okay. Going a little bit thicker on the glue here because we've got a lot of surface area to cover, and we don't want the glue to dry out. You don't want to overdo it either because it has a tendency to warp the paper if it's too wet. So just be careful. Find that balance. Okay, spreading that out. You can tell that this side might be a little problematic because I didn't get as much glue on there, but that's okay. All right, go ahead and close it up. Focus on aligning it with this side here. Get it centered right out to that very edge and press that down. And then the other 2 sides should just naturally fall into place. And then just keep running your finger along the very edge to help it make contact with that glue. You can tell this part here is going to need a little cleanup. It's fine. Flip it over, press down on the tab from the inside to help the rest of it get a good grip. Just like that. Okay. Let's take a look at our seams here. And it seems that the seams are seamless. Okay, except for that one. That's okay. So we'll just grab a scrap piece of paper. So anytime I do a bunch of cutting and I have some scrap, I always cut a bunch of these little squares just to have them on hand for times like this. And we'll just paint a little extra glue right in that area. I knew that was going to be the area where it just didn't get enough glue, and that's okay. Just press that down and hold it for just a moment. And I've got one more little area here that needs a little extra love. Right there. And we'll press and hold that down. There we go. Wonderful. Okay, looks good. We can always go back and take another look at it later if we feel that we need to. Okay, so we do have a piece of acetate that's going to go inside here, and that's just so you can kind of see what sort of treats you're bringing. And you can see that goes right over this little cutout here. It's bigger than it needs to be, and that's fine. I'm just going to put some glue right along the perimeter here. Don't get it too close to the actual cutout because it may kind of bleed in a little bit, and we don't want it peeking through the little window. If you don't have any acetate, you probably have like an old cutting mat, and you can use that too. Just cut that with your machine. Pop that into place. Give that a few seconds to set. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece and just cover that up like so. Okay, and it's going to make it look nice. It'll hold it in place better. Okay, so let's put our glue on this piece. Throw a little bit on that stem. Don't overdo it. Just using my surface to kind of hold this in place because it is kind of flimsy. It'll just allow me to work quicker. I'm going to hold it like this and just drop it in. It should pretty much fit perfectly inside like that. And just press that down. It's also going to help hold the acetate in place. Just press that down all the way around, especially on the stem here. Get that in place. And there we go. Okay. And that cleans it up, makes it look nice and seamless. And then you have your beautiful acetate there as well. Okay. So now all that's left to do is finish up the top here. We're going to start off with this panel. It's going to go on like this. And you can see we just have a little bit of a border showing on the perimeter and a little bit on the inside in 2 sections. So let's get our glue going here. And I've got a lot of surface area to cover here, so try to be speedy. But you also want to make sure that you don't overdo it on the glue here. Just need a little bit. I'm just going to do a nice little line here. And then just cover the inside. Don't have to get every little inch of it. There we go. Just like that. I'm going to hold it from the inside. Now the elements inside here, the leaf and the pumpkin, they are going to match up perfectly. And when you do that, the rest of it just kind of naturally falls into place. Just press down, work your fingers around the perimeter, like so. There we go. Just like that. Beautiful. Okay, looks great. All right, so now we can start kind of putting the final elements in place here. This pumpkin, we're going to match that up with the stem as well as these little round parts here so we can get that in place. I actually inked just the tip of the stem. Most of the rest of the element is going to be covered up. And that little tendril there, don't put any glue on that. That's for later. Okay, let's get that in place. Line that up as accurately as you can. I'm just focusing on the stem, making sure that's lined up. And then the rest of it should just kind of fall into place. There we go. Again, making sure that we do not put any glue on this little tendril here. We're going to actually curl that, make it look kind of cool. Okay, so while that's flat, we're going to put the little leaf sections in place. This one here is going to go right here like a little puzzle. It's going to pretty much hug the pumpkin. Okay, so let's flip that over and begin applying our glue. Go easy on the glue here. You don't need a lot, just a very nice thin layer, almost like you can see through it. Okay, take that. You can see that there is a little shadow element of this portion of the leaf there, as well as right here. Okay, so that's going to go on flat like that. And down here, there's a little shadow element as well. I also inked that a little bit. And next, we're going to put the leaf over on this side, which is this one here. And again, falls in like a little puzzle piece. You have a little bit of a shadow here and here for that element. And as I'm looking at this, I realize that that part is kind of sticking up a little bit. So I'll just throw a little glue on a piece of scrap. Just tuck it right under there, paint a little extra glue on it, and press it down. And we'll flip this guy over, apply our glue. Like so. And pop that into place. Use those little shadow elements to help guide the positioning. Okay. And again, that's going to hit that just like a little puzzle piece. Should sit nice and flush up against it. All right, next, we can actually do the top layer, kind of going, building from the bottom up. This little leaf's going to go right here. Okay, you can see the little shadow element for it, so we know exactly where it needs to go. We'll get our glue on that. I think probably about 30 minutes you should have this thing assembled. Not including the cutting, obviously, but that's the fun part, picking out your papers and making it your own. There we go, pop that in place, looks great. And now with this one, since it's kind of on its own, we can put the next layer on top, which is this one here, and that's going to get centered right on the design here. You can see there's kind of a little, almost like a quarter circle there. You want that to be flush, the rest of it needs to be centered. That little half circle is kind of a placeholder for where we're going to put our little dimensional flower in just a moment. We'll probably do that after we get the rest of this assembled, since it's dimensional and we don't want to mess with it. Okay, so again, use that little half circle as your initial guide, and then take a look around the rest of the perimeter and make sure that you've got a nice even border all the way around. In my case, it's purple. You may have a different color, and that's fine. There we go. All right, let's build the pumpkin now. Pumpkin's made up of 3 pieces. This first piece is going to go on flat, and you can see that we have the little shadow element down at the bottom, but the remaining 2 layers, we're actually going to use some foam squares to give this piece a little bit of dimension and kind of raise it up a little bit so it's not so flat looking. Okay, line that up. I'm using the little ribs at the bottom as my guide. Okay, so like I said, we're kind of building from the bottom up. Let's get the stem in place. The stem's going to go right here, just like a little puzzle piece, just like we've been doing. We'll flip that over and just throw a little bit of glue on there. It's very tiny amounts, very thin amounts, I should say. You want to get it pretty much completely covered, but nice and thin. And press that into place. You can see the little orange tip is still exposed, exactly how we want it. All right, now, since we're kind of working our way up, this side here, we can grab this piece, and it's going to go right in there, nice and centered, and the inner portion of the leaf is going to butt up against this layer of the pumpkin. So let's get our glue going here, nice and thin, sparse, just like that. And I'm going to hold it by the thickest part here. Very gently put it into place. Make sure you've got it nice and centered, just like that. It should literally be touching the pumpkin, just like that. Okay, looks great. Now we can move over to this side. We've got these 2 little individual pieces. That one's going to go there, and the smaller one is going to go right here on the top part. So let's get that in place. Just like that. Don't need a lot of glue for this. Butt it up against the pumpkin, make sure it's nice and centered, and press that down. We'll grab the other one. And you need a little more there. Whoops. Not that much. Okay. And we'll get that in place, nice and centered, right up against the pumpkin. Press that down, there we go. Okay, so now we're going to grab some foam squares, and we'll grab the next largest piece, which is this one here. You can see the little ribs, it's got kind of like a little butt. We'll flip it over and start applying our foam squares. And do top left, top bottom, bottom left, bottom right. We'll throw one right in dead center, and then maybe one here and one here. We'll turn it over, just give it a little push test. Make sure it's not bending too much in any spot. Peel those off and get that in place. There we go. And again, use the pumpkin's cute little butt there to help you with the positioning. I was slightly off there. There it is. Perfect. And then we'll grab this last piece here. And it's kind of egg-shaped. And you can see it's a little bit thicker at the bottom, thinner at the top. This is the top. We'll flip it over. And we'll go here. We'll go here. Here. And then that part. There we go. And then maybe one there and one there. Well, you know what? That's fine. It's pretty small relative to the rest of the piece, so I'm sure this will be plenty to keep it where it needs to be. Okay, now you'll notice there's a little score mark right here, and there's one right here as well. Use the little center of the pumpkin as your initial guide, and then just rotate it however you need to match that little score mark. And there you can see how beautiful that looks. So that just leaves a little tendril. And so what you can do with that, grab yourself a thin dowel, and I'm just going to take and wrap this around my dowel. The thinner the dowel, the more pronounced the little curl will be. It's just like curling your hair, I guess. Nice and easy. It's pretty thin, so if you pull on this too much, it may rip. So don't do that. Just pulling it all the way down, and then just let it go. And then you can kind of flare it out. And actually, let me show you a different way of doing this. So if you take it and you wrap it, instead of wrapping it on itself, you can wrap it around the dowel like this. Let me bring it down a little bit more so I have more space. Just wrap it that way. Just hold it at the very end as you wrap. Okay. And I didn't really wrap it down at the base, which is why it's kind of sticking up still. Just continue wrapping that down all the way to the very end. And then if you want, you can actually take and let's get the flower installed first. We have another one here as well, and I'm gonna actually wrap this first. So I'm just placing it up against my dowel and then just wrapping it like this. So it's kind of like next to itself as you wrap it. Kind of like a candy cane, I guess. There we go. And we can let it go. And we've got a cute little tendril here. You can shape it however you want. And what we're going to do is actually glue this probably just like right behind this middle layer. So I'm going to take and just put a little splash of glue on one side of this, very thin. You don't need a lot. And I'll take this and just kind of pop it in between the bottom layer and the top layer, and then just give that a press down. You can lift it up a little bit if you need to. Just hold it in place. And if we really want to get precise here, we can also take and just put a little tiny dot of glue on the bottom of this just to hold it in place so it doesn't jiggle around, which is kind of a cool idea actually. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to just throw a little tiny dot of glue right on the very bottom of this, like so. Probably thin it out so it doesn't go splashing everywhere. Give it a nice little curve, and then just press and hold it down up against the paper until it sets. I had a little bit of glue on my finger, so I'll use a dowel to hold it. Okay, so you can see how that's sitting. And then once we get the flower in place, I'm going to wrap this one around, kind of bring it in a little bit. But speaking of the flower is made up, we have two of them actually. So you've got two pieces that look like this with 3 petals and 2 pieces with 2 petals. That's one flower, that's another flower. And all you need to do with this, you can grab a dowel and just kind of flare it up a little bit. Okay, I'm putting the dowel or the petal between my finger and the dowel, lifting it up about 90 degrees, running the dowel through. And then what we're also going to do is take and crease it in half and pinch it right at the tip, like that. Okay, so we'll repeat the same process with the remaining petals here. So I'm going to train them first, and then take and just I'm using these 2 fingers here, my thumb and my middle finger to hold the 2 sides, and with my pointer finger just kind of pushing down just to give it a slight curve. And then once it's sort of cupping a little bit, I'll just take these 2 fingers and just pinch. Here we go. Excuse me. And then to assemble the flower, all we're doing right now is we'll have the 2 petals at the bottom, 1 at the top, and we'll just put this right here so that the other 2 are above the 2 at the bottom, just like that, and match up those little circles in the center. And it should sit up nicely for you. It should be nice and dimensional. And we can finish that off by putting a little pearl in the center. Got some nice gold pearls. Now, if your pearls have their own adhesive on the back, don't use it. Use some glue. to make it more permanent. So we have a beautiful flower there. We'll do the same thing with the other one here. So again, petal between your finger and your thumb. I'm sorry, between your finger and the dowel. Right at the base of the petal, lift it up 90 degrees, run it through. Okay, that's going to give it a nice curve. We'll do this for this one as well, just like that. And then we're going to take and give it a little pinch right at the tip. There we go. If you're off a little bit and it's not perfectly centered as far, or right in the middle as far as the pinch, I don't think anyone's really going to notice. I don't know that you always see perfect flowers in nature, so just keep that in mind as you construct your flower. It's not a big deal. It's still going to look great. Now, if you don't put any dimension onto it, or make it dimensional, then maybe it won't look so great. So as long as you're adding some dimension, I think you're going to be in good shape. Okay, so we've got some glue on the 3-section part of the flower. We'll put the 2-section part of the flower in place by using that little circle in the center as our guide, just like that. Throw a little glue in the center. Find yourself a nice pearl or rhinestone, or maybe you have some specialty bling that you want to use, and that's fine too. And add your little pearl. Okay, now one of the flowers we're going to put right up here. Of course, we have that little half, or yeah, it's basically a half circle there. Just throw a little glue on that and take this guy. I'm going to point one of the petals out to the corner. And we have that there. And then finally, we have, I'm going to put one more, and actually put some glue on the back of this, nice and thin. And we're going to keep this one nice and centered. This is going to get glued to the topmost layer of our pumpkin, right about there. Just be patient while that sets. And then we can take this little tendril and just kind of maybe glue it right about there so that's not flailing around. We don't want it to get ripped either. I think it's going to go right about there. Whoops. I'm going to use my dowel to hold it in place, just like that. And once that's in place, because it kind of scooted around on me there, I've got a little bit of glue that kind of sputtered around there. I'm just going to wipe that off with some paper. It's going to dry clear. It might leave a little bit of a glossy sheen, but just rub it off. It'll be fine. Okay, now let's just take and curl that very tip a little bit, and there you have it. Okay, so that's the lid. We have our base. The only thing that's missing now is the pie or some cookies or whatever it is you want to put inside of it. And as you can see, the lid goes on beautifully, and our box is ready to go. Look at that beautiful embossing on the side, the inking, the pumpkin, the leaves. What a great way to present some delicious treats to a host, hostess, family member, teacher, whoever it may be. So hope you guys enjoyed the process. If you did, please take a moment and visit us on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. While you're there, ring that bell so you get notifications anytime we release a new product. And if you make this or anything from our new bundle, I would love to see it, and so would the rest of our community. So head over to your Facebook and do a search for Dreaming Tree Group, or you can type in this cute little, quick little URL that you see at the bottom of your screen. So hope you guys enjoyed the process, and as always, I look forward to crafting with you again. Hey, thanks for crafting along with me. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, check out some of our other videos, and also please consider hitting that subscribe button. And don't forget to visit our site and check out our free SVG section, where we have over 140 free SVG files complete with assembly videos. I look forward to crafting with you soon.